In this episode, we sit down with Kruise Leeming, rugby league player. He's just come off the back of winning one of the most prestigious prizes in rugby league, winning all 4 trophies available within rugby league, which no other team has done in the history of the sport. We dive into Kruise's love for the game, where his passion started for playing, and everything in between, how his perspective on life has changed over the last couple of years, and what the future holds for Kruise. This conversation was one of my favourites. This episode is not to be missed. I hope you enjoy it. Kruise, thank you for joining me. Recently won the grand final, and now you've won all 4 trophies in a season, which has never been done before. Where did the love for rugby league start for you?
Thanks for having me on. Been friends a while now, and anything I could do to help the podcast, and you're doing some great things. So yeah,
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
It's an honour for me to come on. The love for rugby. Well, the story of me playing rugby started. I play a lot of golf. Used to play loads of golf growing up, and I used to practice a lot. 10, 11-year-old. I used to practice my golf shots, and near me was Siddle Rugby League amateur club, and I used to go on the field there and practice my pitching and hit all my shots. And one day the groundsman come down and he said, "Look, lad, you're ripping all my turf up." And I was like, "Oh, please let me carry on doing it." He says, "Okay, I'll do you a deal." I says, "Sweet." And he said, "If you come training for the team, under 11s or whenever it was, it started pretty late. So if you come training, then I'll let you hit as many golf shots as you want off this turf and I'll sort it out." I says, "All right, sweet." Went training. Loved it with the lads, playing a singular sport, playing individual sport as in golf, and there's a lot of hours spent on your own. There's a lot of, you're only out there on your own playing each shot. And I think the camaraderie and the togetherness and the culture that comes with a team sport, that's where the love of it come from. It wasn't so much the rugby in the outset, it was the fact of playing with 12 other lads, getting changed after, going out, pie and peas, then, making friends. That was the buzz around playing. I've going out, playing such a tough game against an opposition, then we all in clubhouse after having a crack, and families are there, and there were none of that playing golf. You went and you played on your own, you practiced on your own, you won a tournament, you got up, did a speech, and that were it. You went home on your own, that were it type thing. So I really enjoyed that side of it, and even to this day is probably the biggest reason of why I play is, and that speaking to people who have retired, it's the biggest thing that they miss now is the camaraderie and the laugh that they have with the lads. You've got 30 other teammates there that are all rowing in the same direction, going for the exact same goal. You all get up in the morning, you go through these tough times together where, it's dark outside, it's hailstone, it's raining, you're running together. And I think when you get a group of people all rowing in the same direction for a common goal, you can achieve so many special things. And not to say that any individual sport like golf doesn't have that, and they will have special moments and special times together. But I think to have a team around you while you do it and share that success with a load of other lads and your family and stuff is the love for the sport for me.
Yeah, I love that. It's the synergy together.
Yeah.
Why do something on your own when you can do it with 30 other people and learn from them? And like you said, the camaraderie. And, that's how we met, isn't it? Playing rugby league. I remember the first time I met you, said you wanted to punch me in the face. So playing for Hillsborough Hawks against Siddle. And yeah, we got absolutely battered by you. But no, it's that thing, isn't it? That's why I used to love it. I just weren't quite as good, so I didn't make it professional. But the lads and the family orientation, the camaraderie, you can see why you love it so much. But obviously, you took it to the next level. You made it through professionally. Where did you sort of see within your younger years, start playing at under 11s? Because I remember at under 16s, I remember hearing about you before I'd even played. Said, "Oh, when you play Siddle, watch out for this lad called Kruise. He's really good. He's the lad to look for." So I was like, "Fucking, I'm going to batter this ground." But where was it? So under 11s, obviously, you've not played before. When was it when you started to realise that you actually had talent, like you had a gift?
It's a tough question. I've been asked this a couple of times, and it's probably, as a professional sportsman, you're always hypercritical of yourself. You've always got that imposter syndrome that everybody has in day-to-day life of, am I good enough? And I still ask myself them questions every day. It's just the stage has moved. The nerves still feel the same in my stomach. When I went and played for Siddle in a big game, if you could sample and take what I was feeling in my stomach there to going out, running out to a grand final in front of 70,000 people, it would feel the same. It's just the stage has changed. So you always are asking them questions of, am I good enough? What's going to happen? Fear of the unknown. I think you never get to a stage where you think, right, I've made it or whatever, but you, like you say, you do get somewhere in between where you think, okay, I am good at this, I can make a career out of this. And it were probably when I played my debut for Huddersfield, that was the point where I was such a young lad. I was only 17. I played in a debut, I think it was a Challenge Cup game for Huddersfield. I scored with my first touch. It was against Warrington. I thought, right, yeah, I can do this as a career. And I can remember going through a really tough period with my mum, because she was born in Africa, where I was born. Over in Africa, just to give you a bit of a background on schooling, is you have to pay for every day to go to school. It's right. Like, there's no free education, there's no free NHS. So the rich kids go to school really, and the poor kids don't. So then they're seen as, the more money you have, the cleverer you're going to be, the more money your family can then go on to have. So everyone wants to send their children to school, and the kids see it as such a big thing to go to school. But some families might only be able to send the kids to school on a Monday and a Tuesday. Then for the rest of the week they can't afford, so they just go Monday, Tuesday. Wow. And my mum's come through that system, and the parents have worked so hard to be able to give her an education, to go to school. And then, she went on and met my dad and came over here. I had me over there. And then when I was 3-4 years old, I came over. And all the way through my upbringing, it was such a massive thing for my mum to say to me, is like how privileged I am to be able to go to school for free. And I don't have to pay for schooling, and that I'm going to get an education. And it's free. So when I was growing up in primary school or secondary school, the fact that children would skive and not go, she just didn't get her head around it, that back in Swaziland, where I'd been born and she'd been brought up, these children would beg for that opportunity to go to school, and they're paying for it, and we're getting it for free, and there's people choosing not to take it. So that were a big thing. And obviously when I got to 15, 16, and I turned around to my mum and were like, look, she says, you're going to go to uni and all this. And I says, look, I'm not, I'm going to go play rugby. I can remember her being like, we've spoke about this all your life, about, the other children and schooling, and now you're turning down free education to go try and be a professional rugby player. It was like telling my mum I was going to go be a magician. She's like, there's just no way you can do that. And it was a tough period for me. Going through that, and my mum never backed me in the fact of I'd gone against, we had all these conversations about, the free education system and being educated and going to uni, getting a good job that way. So then I turned around and says, no, I'm going to be a professional rugby player. It was a tough period that for me, but it almost didn't give me a plan B in the fact of, I thought, okay, I've played my debut now and I'm going to go down this route. So there is a pathway there where I can see I could be successful at this. But B, there was no plan B for me. I had no backing from my mum, because all she said was go get an education. So she couldn't wait for the chance to, I say this, it's not the chance to fail, but if I would have failed early on, she'd have said, see, there you go, you need to go to school. So. Yeah, I told you so, type of thing. So I had no plan B. None of my family played rugby. There were nobody around my age that I'd known for ages that had gone on to do what I'd done. So there were no advice coming that way. So I just had to put all my eggs into one basket, and it were almost like a realization of what you're saying about right, I've played my debut now for a professional team. I'm making headway, but the work can't stop here, because it's not like, oh, I've achieved my goal now, I've played my first professional game, I'm done. I had to make a life and a career out of it, because I had no plan B, and my mum won't back me, and she told me the route that she wanted me to go down. And I chose not to go down that route, so I had to put all my eggs into one basket and do it this way.
Do you, going back to your education, I love that from your mum, the perspective. Because how many times do we take the things that we have for granted every day? You know, like a roof over his head, a free education. Did that change your perspective on school while you were there compared to the people around you and your friends?
I'd like to say it did, but it didn't. No, it's a strange thing in it when somebody that is something that, as I'm getting older, is a massive part of my life now, is gratitude. And I know it's a buzzword and everybody, but I think that is part of getting older, is you start to realize, especially, you know, we're not old by any means, are we? But you can see, I can see the conversations that I've had with people years ago, and they've been telling me a certain thing, and at the time I've been like, what are they talking about? Yeah. And now I can remember back to them conversations and think I totally understand what they were saying now. And I think that is just a byproduct of getting older and appreciating everything as you're getting older. Of, wow, even the relationship that me and my mom have got, she was a great mom. We went through that period, but it was just to try to be a good mom. There were no... But the appreciation, now I'm thinking about having children and the challenges that the world throws at parents, and the way that she brought me up. And you always think, oh, when I'm going to be a mum, I would have never done that, and I would have never done. But it's their first time at it, and the way she brought me up, the appreciation I've got for how she was as a parent with me is such a massive thing. And, you know, like you say, roof over his head, and every little thing as you're getting older, and I've still got a long way to go, but I am starting to appreciate different things in life. And I've always been somebody that's liked, you know, the stereotypical, the cars, the finer things. But I think it is part of getting older, is realizing that it's not the be all and end all. And I know some people will never get to that stage in their life, and they'll just end up being like that forever. They'll end up, you know, thinking the finer things in life. But for me personally, the relationships that you make now going through life, and the people I want to help, and the impact I want to have on different people's lives, you know, so they don't say, oh, did you see Kruise? He was driving this car. It's like, oh, this is the way he made me feel when I spoke to him, or this, you know, we're having a tough day, and when he spoke to me, you know, he put things into perspective for me. And I just think it is part of getting older. But to go back to your question of, did I appreciate school as much? I just always wanted to have a laugh at school, and you can't always laugh, can you? There's some things that are not funny, and there's some things that you shouldn't be joking about. But at school, I would never got expelled. I would never but I always pushed that line of, what can I get away with here, and how can I make that person laugh? Because that were more important to me. Making somebody laugh than getting my grades at school were more important to me.
But it's perspective though, isn't it? Like, I remember, like, my drive and ambition in terms of wanting to be successful and make an impact in the world probably didn't really start till I was early 20s. And I think back now, if, like, at school, I did try hard. I did all right. I didn't do fantastic. But as you said, as you grow older, you gain a new perspective, and gratitude, and the finer things are more about the little things in life, as opposed to, you know, it'd be interesting to have a conversation with 15-year-old Tom, as I imagine it would be to have a conversation with 50-year-old Kruise, and the differences in perspective, and the differences of how things change when you grow older. So yeah, I just, with your mum being how you explained, and not having that education, or unless you paid for it, wonder if that would have been, you know, the same perspective for you, which I imagine it was, obviously. But when you're in that environment, you're with the lads, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but when I also think it's something to point out, is that it wasn't only until you were 17, when you had your debut, that was when you thought, I can do something with this. Was there no sort of internal belief before that, you know, from the age of 11 until 17, where you thought, I'm going to be somebody, I'm going to be successful in this racket, I'm going to win a grand final when I'm 28?
No, it wasn't. And sometimes I think it's hard to believe, but I was never destined to be a rugby league player. That was never my,
Really?
you know, up until, like I say, up until I probably turned around and thought, well, I've got no else to do here. I've always said to my nan, I always said to her, I wanted to be an actor. So that was my big thing. I used to love drama at school, and I wanted to be an actor all the way through secondary school. And then after that, I went through a period, I can remember wanting to be a pilot. I always wanted to fly a plane and wanted to be a pilot. And that, like I say, that was from secondary school up to making my debut. I thought, oh, you know, I really want to fly a plane. But then when I realised that, okay, I've made my debut. I loved the lifestyle. I loved training. I loved the lads, the camaraderie. I was saying with the school thing. That's all I loved, is the banter.
Just being around the boys
in the changing rooms. You know, I loved the lads. I loved the lifestyle. I loved my diet. I loved the way it made me look and feel. That you couldn't, you know, it kept me on the straight and narrow. Not in the fact that I would have gone off the rails anyway, but in the fact of I had a purpose from a young age, where everyone, all my other mates were going out making these mistakes of the girls, the nightclubs and all this lot. I could have made a lot more mistakes if I didn't have rugby pinning me down of every Saturday I had a game, or every, you know, Saturday morning I was training, Sunday morning. And I just enjoyed that. There were some tough moments like there are in any successful path. You've got to take some things and sacrifice some things. But I didn't feel like I was sacrificing that much, to be honest with you. When the conversations that I had with my mates after nights out, like you do, it's always great on the night and your phone's ringing, but then that morning when you wake up fresh and they don't, it's like, oh, how were it, boys? And they're like, oh, no, it wasn't a good one. It's not worth the hangover. So I never thought I was sacrificing a lot, but it kept me on the straight and narrow. I got to a point where I thought, I'm earning money off this. Then I started having a look round of my pathway of, well, he's in my position and he's in my position, and you know, I'm so much younger than him, and I think I'm better than him. So where he's got, I can definitely get there. And then you start having a look around at your pathway and what you're going to do with your life. And then I started thinking, right, okay, let me put all my eggs into here and let's just concentrate on this and turn it into something special.
So you signed your professional debut with Huddersfield Giants at 17. Who at 17 was the biggest inspiration in terms of rugby league for you, and who was it that you really looked up to at that age?
I again, to talk about the full backstory, is when I was 8 years old, I lost my dad, and again, I'm in such a state now in my life of everything happens for a reason, and it's such a horrible thing to say, but it's like almost losing my dad. You know, I was his best mate and we got on so well. It were almost, in a weird way, it could have been the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, because it made me tough, for one. It made me think, even stepping into the world of Super League or the professional world, there were just nothing that would faze me then when I got to a stage in my life where walking into a room full of 30 lads would be a little bit like, and I'm only human, obviously you are, but nothing could have been worse than what I went through losing my dad at 8 years old. So I think there's certain things that happen in your life at different stages where at the time you just like,
it's the worst thing ever.
It's the worst thing ever, but then you get to a stage and you think, wow, I can see why that's happening. It set me up to be the person that I am. So I lost my dad at 8. Obviously, I was golfing at the time, so who knows, it might have pushed me into being a golfer. I was showing promise in golf, and you never know, things change. So like I say, everything happens for a reason, and all part of this jigsaw has been put together. And when I signed at 11 years old, when I started playing amateur at 11-year-old for Siddle, there was a coach there called Gaz Greenwood. very clued up, played professionally at Huddersfield and Halifax himself when they were in the Super League. So very clued up, especially for 11-year-old, like, you know, in playing Super League, the coaching that we were getting at 11 years old was ridiculous. Taught me a lot about mental toughness, challenged my mental toughness in the right way and channeled it in the right way as well of, you know, you can show emotion, you can, but you've got to be tough in other aspects as well. If you want to achieve anything, you can't be giving into temptation all the time and giving into frustration or, you know, this hasn't worked, so right, I'm just going to shout at everyone. And that's where I were in my life. I was probably an angry kid growing up with the things that had happened to me, being, you know, a bit different, of being different colour, being born in Africa, you know, different parents, different upbringings, things, you know, I had a mum that's fully, her accent's fully African, and any of the lads come round to my house, like, oh, it's different. Not that it's bad, it's just a different thing. And for children growing up, anything different is something to speak about.
Yeah.
And me not dealing with it in certain ways. So I got then to Siddle, and I can remember it were crazy, this, because again, worst thing to ever happen, but like the best thing as well. He's my mentor now. We're like brothers. Our best man at his wedding. We've stayed in contact. He was like the father figure / brother that I've never had. Never replaced my dad, but he's very, very close, and he's a massive factor in all my success that I've had now, up until even, you know, the challenges that I have. And some people might have thought I'd outgrown him, or I'm playing in grand finals and he only coached me as an amateur. But every problem I've got, everything I speak life-wise, rugby-wise, I go to him with, and he normally gives me the right advice. Well, he does. But yeah, so
I love that, by the way. That's special. So special. I think you just hit the nail on the head. You've just won the biggest prize in rugby league, but yet you still put everything down to your coach that coached you at 11 years old. That's a real special relationship right there.
Yeah, it's very special. And not to say that, look, my mum's a massive part of my success. My missus is a big part of my success, but, you know, my family are huge. Like, but if we're talking about individual people in certain areas of my life where I needed them to be exactly who they were at that time in my life, because I could have gone two different ways, and they were there for me. A massive sliding door moments, which I look at and I think, if you wouldn't have been there at that time in my life, I could have gone any which way. And so I can remember playing my first or third season down at Sill. I might have been 13, 14. And I started showing promise, you know, the best player on the team then, and the way I was as a person.
Did you used to play standoff when you were amateur?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, standoff for 13.
Yeah.
Way I was as a person, very, you know, when you're good at something, there's a lot of things get let slide, like even in life nowadays, you know, the way I speak to people, or the way I'd be around the lads, you know, if they weren't good enough, I'd be screaming and shouting at them, and it'd almost get let slide because of how good I was on the field. But he was the first person to come to me, really, and it were an end of season awards event, like every team does. At the end of the year, you have awards: best player, players player, player of the year. So for people who don't know, player of the year is how many man at matches you get throughout that season, which is nominated by the other team's coach. He will say, yeah, you know, Kruise were the best player on the field today, and you get man at match.
Yeah.
And whoever's got most of them gets the player of the year. And then there's players player, which all your peers vote for who they think's the best player that year. Then you've got like top try scorer and all this lot. So we're getting to the end of season awards. I got top try scorer. I got player at year, and he come and sat me down. I can remember it like it was yesterday. He sat me down and he said, you've had a great season. You've played really well, all this lot. And I was like, yeah, brilliant. He said, how many players votes do you think you've got? And I said, you know, 17, 18 lads there. Some of them, you know, I'd pissed off during year. Some of them I'd not, but I'd been the best player. So it's clear to see who should be getting it. But obviously, you know, there's lads there that are all 13, 14 years old. They pick the people, who's the best. But then if they don't like you, it's very true back then. It's not like now. And it's brutally honest. That's exactly how it should be. And I said, 6. She's a bit lower than that. And I said, 4. It's a bit lower. 3, 2, 1. Nah, none. I got 0 votes. Not one person on that team wanted to vote for me as players player. And he said, if you carry on being how you are, I were very, I just wanted to win. It were coming from a good place, but the way I were with people were just, it were wrong. I would scream and shout, and it'd be little things. Probably a bit of it got me to where I were in terms of I just wanted everything to be perfect. But then you can't be like that in life. You'll just end up with no friends. And I've played with players that are like that nobody likes. And your lifespan, no matter how good you are within the game, if nobody likes you, it's like life. You can be a multimillionaire, but your quality of life, if nobody likes you around you, will eventually run out, and it won't be good. You won't be able to pay these people to be friends with you forever. They'll just, all of a sudden, the money doesn't matter anymore, and you're just painful to be around. So no matter how much money you've got, you're alone. It's the very same in sport. And he told me this, and we went through a period then of, trying to reshape my character and be a good person. Then to fast forward 10 years, so 13 to 23, 24, and I get nominated as captain of Leeds Rhinos, and that was a peer vote from all. We went through a season, then the captain left, and then the way that we trained that pre-season, the coach got everybody in. You wrote your vote in a piece of paper, put it in a box, and then he said, right, you've chose your captain. It's not for me to choose. And then for me, 10 years on from that, to be nominated as the captain of one of the biggest clubs in the world was a massive thing for me, and just a massive thank you to what he'd done for me as a character as well, to come that far. And I think that no matter what achievements I've done within sport and trophies and grand finals, which are brilliant, I think that will always resonate with me as one of the biggest achievements I've ever had in my life.
That's incredible, mate. And I think that's a testament to your character, the lessons learned. And again, it's perspective, isn't it? That lesson that you learned, which I can imagine at the time was a little bit tough to take, the fact that all your teammates didn't want to vote for you because how you'd been that season. But rather than throwing a tantrum and saying, oh, well, it's on them, not me, you used it, you had the conversation with your mentor and your friend, and 10 years later, you get the opposite, the complete 180, and everybody voting for you. And I love what you said earlier as well, and I'm a massive believer in it myself, that everything happens for a reason. You very sadly lost your dad and your best friend at 8, and that's shaped you into the person you are today. And myself, with my brother, losing my brother, I believe everything happens for a reason as well. Me and you won't be having this conversation right now if I'd not lost my brother to suicide almost 10 years ago. And again, it's mindset. I think you always can have a conversation with somebody and you know that they've been through some form of trauma. And I love the conversation around the gratitude and the perspective. And obviously we played against each other, I think it was 16, and then we were at Warrington. And then just remembering how you were at Warrington compared to now, and everything shaped you, and you're a big believer in that. And I know that we've had conversations about becoming, wanting to do public speaking. And everything that we're speaking about now will transpire into that, and how you deliver it and articulate it will come across amazing. I think it'll be incredible. I'm excited for that part of your journey. But yeah, it's just a mindset, mate. It's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the different way you look at certain things, it seems really simple and it's easy to do when but it's not over until it's over, is it? And I think it will eventually, if you persevere at doing a certain thing, no matter what's bad's been happening, if you persevere, you can turn that into something good. I could have gone, you've got so many excuses. Everyone's got excuses. You see these successful people and you think, wow, he's got such a good life. And you always see what they've got, but you don't know how they've got there.
Yeah.
And
you see the tip of the iceberg.
You see the tip of the iceberg, and everyone's got the problems that if you feel a little bit soft sometimes around why your problems are the worst things in the world, you only have to go to another country and see what other people are going through and you're like, wow, I've got it pretty good. But then there are people that have been handed things and had things better than you. It's just how you use, and that's where I'm at in my life. Is I had a big thing with the way I used to feel getting ready for games, getting up for games, of the nerves and how you feel. And I try and get rid of them. I try do something that I don't like that feeling. Now I've got to a stage of, there's not anybody in them dressing rooms or in them teams that don't have a form of nerves in one way or another. I think it's about just being able to sit. I like now sitting in that and not knowing what's going to come around the corner, not knowing if we're going to win the grand final, not knowing if I'm going to go out there and play well, or I'm going to go out there and have a stinker. I don't know that. Nobody knows. There were 70,000 people watching that grand final. Not one of them could have told you exactly what was going to go on in that game. Nobody knows. And it's about being sat in the change room and thinking, yeah, I feel nervous, I'm scared, and that is okay. Like, don't try to get rid of them feelings. Just keep them and hold on to them and say that's okay. Because I know I wouldn't be human if I didn't feel that way. Like, there's something big going to happen. There's a lot on the line. There's a lot of people that have put faith in me, and there's a lot of work that I've got put into it. And it's okay to feel like you don't know what's going to happen. And I think through life, the reason why people stay in the comfort zone and never achieve what they want to achieve is because they don't like that feeling of, I don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, uncertainty.
That uncertainty. And the more times you can put yourself in that scenario of, I genuinely don't know what's going to happen, and it's a horrible feeling, you feel it in your stomach, but then when you've done it and you've achieved what you want to achieve, it's all worth it for that. It's all worth them feelings of unknown, and them triumphs and them wins don't come without them feelings. So you can either pick a life and choose to live where you never feel them feelings, so you're always comfortable, but you never get the highs. Or you choose, okay, I'm just going to live in that uncomfortableness, and I'm going to sit in it and be okay with it. And the more often, then now it's become a feeling to me that I can understand a bit more. And it's like anything, isn't it? You run your first 10K, you're like, oh my God, that feels horrible. And then your body starts to adapt when you've run 2 and 3 and 4. You start to adapt to it, and your shins don't hurt as much. Your feet don't blister as bad because they're used to it. And that's the same thing with the nerves and the way. And I think in life in general, of not trying to predict what's going to happen is the beauty of life. Not having it's finite in it. Life will end at some point, and instead of trying to keep a hold on the future and what's going to happen and try to get that continuous loop to just keep going of every day, you know exactly what's going to happen, and that's not life. And I think the where I'm at in my stage now is everything happens, you know, for a reason, and you don't know in that moment whether it's going to be something bad or good. So just roll with it. Just roll with it. It's the Chinese farmer thing. Have you heard about what they say with the horses and stuff?
No, go on.
There's a Chinese farmer, and he says he's got a son, and he's on a stable with horse, and he loses his horse runs off, and the village people come to him and they're like, oh my God, you've lost your horse, how bad's that? And he's like, maybe. And then the next day, somebody else's village gets raided, and all the horses run from down there up to his stable, and they all come round his stable because it's the only one left. And his son puts them all in. The village people come to him and go, oh my God, you've got all these horses, how good's that? And he's like, maybe. And then the next day, his son's mucking out the horses, and because there's so many of them, they fall on him, crush him, and break his leg. And then the village people come and they're like, oh my God, your son's broke his leg, how bad's that? And he's like, well, maybe. And then the army comes from that village, and they come over to him, and they're looking for young, fit men to go to the army, but because his son's broke his leg, he can't fight. Yeah. And they're like, oh, your son's not gone to war, how good's that? And he's like, maybe. And the fact of the story is, in every one of them moments, you don't know if it's going to be a bad thing or a good thing. You've just got to roll with what you've got and keep going through life, and eventually it will come good. It'll be a good thing that's happened to you. Eventually it'll be something that you've seen, oh, how good's that? I've won the lottery. Then you end up being addicted to different types of drugs, and you never know what. So it's just about going through life in that vein. And I think that story really resonates with me in life, because that is it. You don't know what's coming. You don't know whether it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing that's happened to you. You've just got to take what you can in that moment, deal with it, and live it.
100%, mate. I love that. That's such a good analogy. And it's, I say quite a lot, is that every situation in life is temporary. So when life is good, enjoy it and embrace it to the fullest. But when life isn't so good, just remember that it's only temporary.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it's not that it's not good. It's just you're learning lessons, aren't you? It's always learning lessons.
That's it. It's like get comfortable being uncomfortable. If you always constantly try and push yourself out of your comfort zone, you'll always thrive. You'll always persevere. But if you always stay in your comfort zone, then nothing really will ever come of it. And that's something my mantra is always do the hard things.
Yeah.
Always do the hard things. Never choose the easy route. Like I said, I went out for a few drinks on Saturday, and this morning, last thing I wanted to do was go to the gym. But I knew I had a busy day, filming with yourself and other people. I needed to be on it. I needed to be sharp. The hardest thing was going to the gym, but I went, did some running, did a bit of weights, feel amazing after it. And now I feel like I'm the best version of myself for everybody that's going to be sat with me like yourself. Whereas if I'd took the easy route and not gone to the gym, I'd have probably woke up an hour later feeling groggy and not been able to articulate everything that I'd have wanted to articulate. And it's the same mantra as you're saying, you know, always push yourself out of your comfort zone and something will come good of it.
I think that's what we're designed to do as people as well. And I think that is, for me, it's more of what helps me sleep at night is going out to the gym and doing that hard thing. Or is that going to help me sleep at night thinking I've made something of my day? I'm going to be proud of that tomorrow, what I've done today, so I can sleep better. Or is it saying stay in bed and not do these podcasts because, you know, I don't want to be out of my comfort zone. I don't want to speak to people. I can't deal with that version of me. You know, people say there's two types of hard in life, isn't there? And there's the hard of being a rich, successful man and, you know, doing things to the putting yourself out of your comfort zone and doing everything you can within your power to make something of yourself. That's hard. Yeah. But then there's a hard thing of being a nobody. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody wants to speak to you. You don't have a nice house. You're homeless maybe. And you look at both of them and you think, well, either one of them's hard. So which hard do I want to pick? And it's the hard of being successful because that's where I can sleep with myself at night. If I don't quite get there, I can look at that and think, well, I picked that hard for myself, and anywhere in between the two hards, then I can deal with. Yeah. Whereas the other one, if I've picked that hard and I do quite get there, it's a version of myself I'm not proud of. So and either or, you can do whatever you want in life. But for me, as an individual, it's about which hard would you want, and that's my version of hard, and that's my version of living my life when it's all said and done, and I'm looking back at my life and my family and my life's done, I can say I can sleep at night with that.
Yeah, exactly that, mate. That's it, isn't it? Which hard do you want to choose? And it's like getting to a Friday for me. Like last week, I had a really good week in terms of like productivity, the gym. I got up at 5:30 every day at the gym for 6, worked, you know, smashed out some really good podcasts, got some good deals in. And I got to Friday and said, I gave everything. Couldn't have done any more. And that's when I feel the best about myself, is knowing that you get to the end of the week and you think, couldn't have done anything better. And knowing that when you get to the end of your life, you look back and you think, give it some go. That's what it's all about for me. What's next in terms of the rugby league path for you then, Kruise? Obviously, you've just done something that nobody's ever done before. The 4 trophies in one season. You know, you're the best club in the world, you know, World Club Challenge holders. Where does it go from here?
I don't think I've got to a stage in my career yet where I'm happy with the player that I am. I still feel like there's room there. And
what makes you not happy about that?
I think I've got more to give. I look at where I'm at and with the things we've won and the team I'm at. I think if it all stopped now, I could look back and I could be proud of my career and say, okay, I've done some pretty special things. But if the option was to stop now, I'd be like, no way. There's still some room left in the intricacies of rugby league and the exact things I want to do in terms of me being a player, where I want to get to and the hours I want to put in. I still think I've got a lot to give, which is a good place to be at. In terms of where I'm at in my life, it's strange because you go through like layers of life, and if you'd have asked me 4 years ago, do you think you're in a good place? Where do you think you can be? And I'd have been like, yeah, I feel good. I were at Leeds at the time, I capped it in there, and you feel like you've got things sussed out. And then you go through layers of complete confusion in life where you're like, wow, it were easy, that's so easy back then, and now I'm so confused. I don't know what club I was going to be at. Then I were in Australia, I were on my own. I went to Gold Coast and I'm living out there on my own. So then you're like, wow, this is confusing. And then you go through, it's waves and layers, and then this layer, just won all trophies. I'm sat here, I'm speaking to you, I feel like I've got a grip of life. And you go through a layer of complete clarity again. And I think it's about going through them layers of life and knowing that you can always be better. And I think I'm in a stage now where for me to stop improving myself as a person, stop improving myself as a player, if I stop that journey, of that improvement journey of each one of them, of me as a person, me as a player, it's where you die then. I think then that's when you start to go backwards. Failing does not mean you're going backwards. Failing means sometimes you're stumbling forwards. Yeah. But if I'm running through this track of life and I'm stumbling forward, that is the layers of confusion. But if I stop running and I don't fail, don't stumble anymore because I'm just stood still, that's where the ultimate failure is that you've not carried on going. And I think where I'm at now in my life, we've won all that. I've got a beautiful missus, my family's healthy, my mother's healthy, my sisters depend on me, they speak to me a lot about what they're going through in their life. I feel like I have got ultimate clarity of what's going on, but I know around the corner there will be some stumbling, and it's about just keep running through and trying these different things and podcasts and public speaking and meeting. I think the one thing I want in a nutshell out of, the next 5 years of my life, if I have a 5-year plan, is to make a lot of good relationships. I think that in my experience, would you say that I've had in the last couple of years is, I think network is currency nowadays. It always might have been. It's just something that I've never seen. Perspective is, you can be whoever you want to be. You can think that you're killing it, but if you don't have that network around you, the true support network of people you can trust, people you can speak to, that's the ultimate thing that I think in them short years of 8 years that my dad was alive, he showed me an abundance of everywhere he took me with him. There wasn't anywhere that I didn't go with him, or like his best friend. Used to go to work with him, used to do everything. And everywhere we walked, it was like, hey, Martin, he knew somebody. And you take it for granted because it's like, oh, it's my dad. But I think if I had a son or a daughter, I'd want them to see that, I'm loved by a lot of people and people want to help me, and at his funeral, there were just so many people. That's all I can remember from the day, where people were queuing out the door. And for me now, that it's about asking the questions of what is meaning of life? What do you feel like is a successful life? And what do you feel like is not a successful life? And it used to be the cars and the money, and then it goes on to the houses. How big's your house? And that's another thing that you speak about, because that's what I think we're programmed a little bit to think. But the ultimate success for me is, I think if if my daughter's son one day will go to my funeral, I want people to say what they were saying about my dad to me, and saying, if you're half the man he was, you'll have had a good life. And for everybody, take time out of the day, because everybody's got a busy schedule, to come and mourn my father there in that funeral, I think is a success to me now. And it's something that I think is a successful life to live, if you can do that in one way or another. And I think the only way to do that is to be good to people, is to build connections with people, is to try and help people where you can, try and make an impact on their life. So it's not the money that you give them or the things, it's the time that you spend. That's the most valuable thing you can give to somebody. And if I can spend 10 minutes with somebody that then, in years to come helps my son, because I helped them in a sticky situation, well, maybe just 10 minutes of my life that I just bypassed, of like, oh, only 10 minutes, but I just took my time out to do it. And then it's made a massive, massive deal about his life and the way he's lived his life. And I think that to me would be something that I look back on and sit back and think, I've done a good job. and that's going forward. It's all interlinked. I used to see the person that I am and the rugby that I'm playing and where I'm at in life as 3 different pods, but the person that you are and how well I'm playing at rugby and where I'm at in my life are all linked. I can't be a bad person over here, then playing great rugby, then not be where I want to be in my life. It's all linked. If one of them's missing, it's like they're the pillars of my success. And if one of them's missing and I'm playing good rugby and where I want to be in life, but then anytime I meet anybody, I'm dismissive and I'm not nice to them and I don't give them the time of day, it will eventually come round to get me. And I think it's just about, and don't get me wrong, I make errors in rugby. I drop the ball. I drop the ball as being a person, and I might be having a tough day, and we, where I want to be in life. Sometimes it looks great, but I might do something that it's been a bad investment, or I've done something that I shouldn't have done, and that's life. It's about learning, and I've not cracked it by any means, but that's where my gauge on success is now.
I love it, mate. And again, I think the perspective on life for you is obviously changed massively in the last 10 years especially, but more so, like you said, since these last couple of years, your currency or your highest currency is completely different to what it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, obviously, yeah, the money's nice and the cars are nice and the house is nice, but equally or more so important is again, it's your network. Your network is your net worth, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And the people that you treat, the gratitude, how you give your time to other people is what it's all about. Like if you die tomorrow, nobody's going to remember how much money you earned. Nobody's going to remember, the house that you had or the car that you got. They'll remember how you treated them. Mm. And that's something is again a massive mantra of mine. Somebody that is driven and ambition, and I want to do well in life. I will equally, or more so importantly, I will always treat everybody the same, no matter who you are, and give everybody the time of day that they deserve. But equally, I want people to remember me as the guy that was nice to them. So I resonate a lot with that, man. I think that's amazing that's how you want to live your life moving forward. It's not all just about the trophies and the money and the cars and the fame. It's the more important things in life, the little things that we take for granted. I love it. I love it a lot. If you could go back to 8-year-old Kruise and you just lost your dad, what would you say to him?
I'd say this were meant to happen. And everything's going to be all right. Just make sure you make your father proud, which I've tried my best to do. But yeah, there's a lot of, it's a weird question. That it's funny because religiously, I don't know where you're at in your life with religion, but when I lost my father at 8 years old, obviously my mum's African, like we've gone over, born in Africa, Swaziland. It's a very Christian country.
Right.
And I were always going to church every Sunday. I used to go back every year to Swaziland when my mum and dad were still together, because she lived over here, left all her family. So the 6-week holidays, I used to go back to Swaziland and spend it there. And I did that up until 11, 12 years old, until I started playing rugby like seriously, because we didn't get the time off. And when my dad passed away, she said she could remember this moment. It's a funny moment because her sister were in Africa, and her sister were like, right, Kruise, we're going to go to church. And we'd all got ready. And I said, I think this was the year after, or that year that my dad passed away, and I were 8, 9 years old. And I said, I'm not going to church. And she said, what do you mean? You're not going to church? Like, that's what we do on Sundays. I said, there can't be a God up there if they've took my dad away for doing nothing wrong. So I'm not going to church. And I totally dismissed religion then. Up until like now, I mean, it's a strange one, because you're asking me what I'd say to that 8-year-old, and I was so angry, and that's my view on life. Like 1 + 1 = 2, and that's what's happening. There's no reason that I can't see any other picture. That's all I could see with a corner of the picture. I couldn't see anything else. And now looking back on how my life's panned out and the sliding door moments that we've talked about, and thinking, just because something happens bad doesn't mean that somebody's done something bad to you. And if there is a God up there, he might have seen this path for me. And, you know, with my dad being alive, it might not have happened this way and my life wouldn't have turned out this way and all this lot, who knows. But what I'm saying is I've opened my brain to the idea that there is religion, there is a God up there in some form, and it might even just be the path that's been. I used to see him as one person making all these decisions. Now I see him as like a kind of path that somebody's chose this life and this is what's got to happen, and there's no way you go through life, or it's a very naive thought, and this is what we are as children, we're naive people. It's a very naive thought to think that you're going to go through life with no heartache whatsoever, and for that one thing to be my heartache that I've gone through in my life, it's probably the hardest thing anybody's got to go through in terms of losing a parent. But would I take that over some of the things I've seen happening to certain people along the way to get me to where I've got to now? Who knows? I'd have probably taken that. And then it's like, have they done a good thing for me then, giving me that as my only heartache? You're going to have to deal with it, young. You've got to deal with it. It's a hard thing to deal with, but if you can deal with it and deal with it in the right way, you've got all this in front of you. Or I don't give you that heartache and you go through life, but you're going to have every 2 minutes something's going to be going wrong, but your dad will still be there. It's like, which one do you take then? And I think that's what I try and explain to the 8-year-old me is like, just because something bad's happened, it's not been done to you, and it might have been done for you instead of done to you. And that's what it's a strange outlook on it, and I don't know where you're at with religion, but I have started to open my mind to the idea of it.
Religion's it's an interesting one. I wouldn't say I'm religious in terms of I see a faith and I see a God, but I'm a big believer in that. I think I believe more in energy. Like the energy that you give, the energy you get back, and karma is 100% real. If you give good out to the world, you will get good back. But in an unselfish way, in a selfless way, if you do good, good comes to you. But equally, bad things are going to happen in your life, and bad things happen to good people. But it's not what happens to you in life, it's how you respond. And you might not see it at the time, but 5 years later, 10 years later, you'll look back and you'll have the perspective and see that it happened for a reason. And I say it in my talks, you know, finding my brother in the way that I did was one of the worst things that'll ever happen to me, but equally it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I started to see life happening for me and not to me. And everything that's happened in my life since then has been a blessing. So I would say, I do believe there is something there, and I think the religion that I believe in is just energy. Be a good person and do good things, and good things will come back full circle.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's funny because I've been through that on a smaller scale with my friends. You know, he's single and he's trying to get a good woman, and I said, you need to make yourself the best you can be, then you'll find the woman that you want. Yeah. If you're not the best version of yourself and you're going out there and you're looking for these women, and you're like, oh, what, she don't want to know or whatever. And I'm thinking, put yourself in her shoes. Why would she? Like the person that you are, why would she? And it happened to me. Like, you end up just going through life, just concentrating on yourself, making yourself the best version you can be. And like we're saying, things attract, and the energy that you go in, the positivity. And then I meet my missus, and it's the same thing, the girl I've always wanted. But it come at a time where I was just concentrating on myself. I wasn't thinking about that. And it's the same thing with the money and the cars and the houses. I'm just, you know, try to build relationships, make a good stamp on the world from my point of view, and I'm trying to do the right thing. And then the money and the trophies. I've been wanting these trophies and these contracts at Wigan. I've been wanting these all my life, and now it's the time when I'm like, okay, I'm living a good life. All I want to do is be a good person. Then I get all the things that I've always wanted. It's a strange way. It's like that's what I mean about this path, and it's a strange thing, but it's a wonderful thing, life. And the more you can think like that of the percentage of us being on this planet and where we're at and the things we get to do, anything is a blessing, like you say, and it's a good position to be in.
1,000,000%, mate. I love that, and I love the fact that you had that conversation with your friend. Because I say that a lot, is like people, for example, people will go to the gym and get a good physique in the hopes they'll find a girl. It's like, no, go to the gym and get a good physique for you and get healthy, and become the best version of yourself, and then everything around you will attract to that. And then you hear about it when a guy will, or a girl will go to the gym, they'll get in the best shape of their life in the hopes that that will attract somebody. They'll find somebody, and then they let everything else go.
Yeah.
And then the girl goes, and then they're back to square one again.
Yeah.
It's like, become the best version of yourself, work on yourself daily, 1% better every day, you versus you, and get to the end of the day, keep the promises that you made to yourself. Everything else becomes a byproduct in a positive way.
Yeah. It's not the six pack that is actually attracting the women. That's what they can see, but it's the fact that you're disciplined. You're going to the gym. You're getting up every morning. You're not putting everything that you want in your mouth. You're having that discipline, and the way that they see you live your life, in the fact of you're not giving in to temptation. That means that you're not going to cheat. You're not going to give in to temptation on a night out. And without them actually being able to articulate that to you and speak to you about it, that's what they find attractive. It's not the fact of you've got a six pack and they can see it. It's a byproduct, and it's nice to look at, but it's all the things that you've had to do to get there. That's what's the attractive thing.
Do you think that's the case of, like, human, for me personally, in my opinion, human beings as well? Like, if you see a guy that looks good, like they look after themselves, you gravitate towards them. You want to be around that person, not necessarily because of how they look, but you know that if they're in shape, they've got calluses on their hands, they're dressing well, they've got the nice car. It's not the car that matters, it's what they had to do to get the car. And you gravitate towards those people because they have the traits of patience, consistency, discipline, delayed gratification.
Yeah.
That's what you gravitate towards. And that's something I will instill into as many people as I can, is that you constantly do what you can do to the best of your ability every single day, and then watch what comes as a byproduct.
Yeah.
100%.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's perfect. That's exactly. And it's funny because people can't see that, they can't make that link. And like you said, they don't get the mindset behind them, so they might go take steroids and have the six pack for a month. They get the girl they want, but it doesn't last, and they don't understand why. It's because they haven't ingrained that routine, and it's not actually them. Yeah. It's just a facade. It's, I look good, but it's not actually me. And the girls, humans can see through other humans, and if you're a liar, you're a cheat, they cut through it. And yeah, it's like, it doesn't help you sleep at night.
No, definitely not. Kruise, it's always a pleasure speaking to you, mate. I've got a lot of time for you. You've done some incredible things within rugby league, but more so, just listening to you for the last hour, everything that you resemble as a man and everything that you're trying to do moving forward, I resonate with so much, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. I think there's going to be something special to come from it. I thank you again for your time, mate.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.